guys, so today we got a question from a young guy who's getting ready for his very first MMA fight. His name is Jake, and he says that he knows that I most of the time do jiu-jitsu videos, questions, and things like that. But he was wondering, when I fought MMA, how did I stay composed while I was in there, when I was getting, into the ring? He says that he's making his amateur debut in a few weeks, and he's done some grappling competitions, some no headshot MMA fights, but this will be the biggest thing he's ever done. And, he's worried about the pressure of the event getting to him and possibly overwhelming him when he goes out there to fight. And so he's just wondering if I have any ways that I deal with that sort of stuff when I was fighting. So Jake, thanks for the question, as always, brother. And, I thought it would be fun because I don't think I've talked much about my very first fight. And what you're going through right now, I've been through it. That you're going through a rite of passage because right now the thing that you're experiencing is something that very few people will ever experience. Very few people know what it's like to sign up for something like 6 weeks or so in advance. And then you and another human being both have agreed upon this. You guys are going to go into a ring or a cage, and you are going to do violence to one another. You're going to do something that literally, if you stepped out of the ring 2 feet over this way and you were outside of the ring, is completely illegal. But as long as you do it within the confines of this ring, it's completely legal. And physical damage is on the table, right? That's a scary thing, and it's something that very few people have experienced. And it's a rite of passage to go through that, because it really is. It's something else. And so I'll share kind of how I went through that whole process, because you're going through it right now, and there's more to it than just the fight day, right? So getting back to it, 2006 was when I had my very first fight. February of 2006. Now, I had about 6 weeks leading up to that fight, signed up for the thing, and as soon as I signed up for that fight, bro, I was so nervous. I mean, from the moment, my stomach was in knots, and I remember my training intensity shot up through the roof because I trained with so much fear and nervousness. When I was getting ready for that fight, I remember, I would have these moments of weakness where I would say, okay, maybe I don't need to train today. And then I would remember this person that I'm fighting, and I would just push myself. And I was training typically bare minimum 2 hours a day, most of the time closer to 4. And I could not have trained any harder with the resources that I had available at the time. I trained as much as I possibly could. And I remember watching, one of the worst things I did, I watched UFC fights leading up to it, and a lot of like pro MMA fights. And I'm seeing these guys fight and knowing that I'm not at that level, getting nervous about the person I'm going to fight, even though that person that I fought was nowhere near that level, kind of spooked me a little bit. But again, that was what was going through my mind. Now, leading up to the fight, about 2 weeks out, I remember I started calling my buddy Thomas. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I've trained enough. I don't know if I'm good enough for this thing, all this kind of stuff. And Thomas was training, and he was inside the MMA community, and he kind of like talked me down off the ledge. He's like, listen, bro, it's okay. Like, you're fine. Like, you're going to do fine. You're going to do great. You're really tough, all that stuff. And so he kind of like chilled me out a little bit. Weigh in on Friday. Saturday comes day of the fight. Super nervous still. I'm trying to sleep, trying to relax as much as possible. I'm listening to like light classical music to kind of chill me out, because I noticed that through the fight camp when I was training, anytime I'd listen to some like hard music, even if I was driving, I would be like, all of a sudden I'd be like tense because I'd be visualizing the fight, and I wanted to keep myself relaxed. I didn't want to be going through that adrenaline dump all day long and get wore out. So the day of the fight, I was listening to classical music and trying to sleep as much as possible. Now, where the nervousness reached its zenith, its apex, was just a few minutes before my fight. I remember that we were fighting at the Gardens, Louisville Gardens, and I think there was a couple thousand people there for this event. It was a pretty big event. It was like one of the first sanctioned MMA fights in Louisville. And so downstairs, they had all the dressing rooms and the changing rooms, and me and a fighter shared this little, it was probably like 6x8 little room or whatever, and there's just enough space to have a bathroom, and we could like do pad work and stuff like that. Now I'm watching him do pad work, and he's like, looks great, and it's freaking me out because striking is my absolute weakness at this point. Granted, I didn't know this at the time. The way that you do pads doesn't always translate to the way that you actually fight, but I didn't know this at the time, and it's scaring the heck out of me because I'm like, whoa, look at that guy hit pads. Does everybody hit pads like that? Because I sure as hell can't hit pads like that. And his name was Stu. Stu goes out. He's the first fight. I'm the third fight. He goes out and just kind of sitting there, and 4 minutes later, I hear, you just hear that roar of the crowd upstairs. And I'm thinking, like, what the hell just happened? Stu comes down. He's like, yeah, bro. He's all excited about this, how he just beat this guy. And he said, dude, I was like throwing the punches and I kneed him in the face, and basically took this guy out real quick in the fight. I'm in the third fight, so I start getting suited up. I was already warmed up, getting ready. As soon as Stu went out, I did a really hard warm-up, got my heart rate going, got the sweat going, shook off all the jitters, that happens a lot of times before competitions. And so once Stu was back, I started to walk out and get ready. And then I see the fighter that Stu fought. He's coming back down the stairs. He's got a big old gash on his face. And again, that's freaking me out because I'm like, oh, no, this is real. Like, okay, man, I got to get ready because I might be fighting a guy like that who's going to freaking throw a knee and gash me in the face. Get out there to the ring. And again, by the way, let me explain what I'm doing right now. I'm telling you about how nervous I was because a lot of times when we go through things like this, the nervousness that I felt, I thought it was so foreign. I thought that I was the only guy that was this kind of nervous. But the reality is everybody's nervous, bro. Even the people that you find that are stone cold, out there, they're still nervous. We have a guy that trains with us. His name's Rando. He's a pro fighter. He's a great dude. I fought with him for years. He was one of my best training partners when I was fighting back in the day. And I remember we were sitting around one day and Rando was getting ready to fight. And someone's looking at Rando and he's stone cold. He's stoic. No emotion. Someone says, hey, Rando, how you feeling? And he kind of looks up at him and says, man, I'm nervous as hell, for real. I mean, as he's nervous, he's saying it so monotone. And it's everybody's going through it in their own way. And so I'm sharing this with you because I want you to know you're not alone, bro. The nervousness that you have for your first fight, we all go through it. It's normal. It's part of the process. Now, getting out there. Cage, I walk in, I'm the second fighter out. Cage door shuts, the metal clink hits, the gate's closed. And I remember I had this surreal moment. I remember I'm looking, I see the ref, it was George Chewjitsu, the UFC fighter. I look over and I see my fighter, he's right across the ring staring at me and he's bouncing around. And by the way, this only lasted a second, but it felt like a minute or two. And I'm looking around and you can just see the crowd. Now, all the noise was muffled at this point, but I'm looking around and I just see the crowd. I'm observing. I'm in a ring with other people watching and I'm getting ready to fight this other person across the ring from me. And then all of a sudden, fight, let's go. The ref says, fight, let's go. Oh, and then as soon as that happened, I ran across the ring, had my hands up. The guy threw a kick. I grabbed his leg, took him down, got on top of him, hit him with a couple shots, and then put him in a choke. That was it. 30 seconds. And the reason why I share it in that way is that I was going through all that nervousness before the fight. I was in maximum nervousness the day of the fight, just a few minutes before. And as soon as I stepped in the ring, my brain shut off and the training took over. The training took over and I just did what I had to do. Now, with you, I imagine you're in the same boat, bro. You're going through this nervousness. You're worried about being overwhelmed by the event and the fight and everything else, just like I was, right? But you're training hard. You've done competitions before. You're pushing yourself. It sounds like from the message you sent me that you're actually training properly. So again, your training's there. And when you get out there, your training's going to take over. Your body is a beautiful machine that's built for survival. So your body right now, leading up to the fight, is doing everything that it possibly can to avoid that unknown outcome of this physical confrontation, right? Because you're putting yourself in danger, physical danger. That's what we sign up for as fighters, right? And so you're putting yourself out there and your body knows this, knows that it's dangerous, and it doesn't want to go to that space. So it's doing everything that it can to try to mentally sway you to get away from it. It's filling you with doubts. It's filling you with nervousness. It's doing all this stuff to make you possibly, just like me, worry about it and possibly consider not wanting to do it. Now, once you step in that ring and the ref says, fight, let's go, at that point, bro, your body then turns off as far as being all the worried part because there's no longer any time to be worried. Your body knows this. Your body says, all right, we're here. It's time to fight. And then all the chemicals that are associated with you being able to fight, they kick on and you start going. This has been my experience, and this has been my experience as a coach more often than not with people. I've had guys literally, and I'm talking about some of these guys, were some of the most impressive physical specimens I've ever seen in my life. Shaking, nervous, shaking before the fight. I mean, they're so nervous. They're looking at a ring and they want to leave. You can tell. You just, hey, man, listen, you got this. Let's get you in there. As soon as the ring, as soon as the ref says go, all of a sudden, pop, 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 they start going into, they're just training at that point. Their body's taking over, the muscle memory's taking over. The biggest things that I could say to help you day of, besides telling you that your body, your training is going to take over, so train your ass off, right? Obviously, preparation is the most important thing leading up to it. But then the day of, try to keep yourself calm. I have seen people really wear themselves out if they're too amped up too much, right? You want to try to keep yourself calm before the storm. You don't want to waste any energy unnecessarily. You want to save up as much as you can for the fight. So be as lazy, be as relaxed as you can possibly be on that day. Then as the fight gets closer, begin to crank up music that might get you pumped up. Start getting your pad works in, your wrestling in, whatever it is that you do to get warmed up. Get really warmed up. Get your heart rate going. Do all that stuff before the fight. Get into do a mini fight before your fight. This way, when you get out there, you're nice and sweaty. You already shake off all the jitters. If you've competed before, you understand this thing where a lot of times if you get the worst match is your first match. As soon as you get through your first match, the rest of the day is just kind of normal, right? You kind of want to go through that. You want to have a little mini fight going on backstage or whatever before the fight starts, so this way you're warmed up, you're ready, and it'll shake, the blood flow's going, and it kind of gets rid of all that jitteriness, and it really helps deal with the adrenaline dump when you get out there to fight. And then you just go out there and you step out on the ring, bro, and just let your body take over. That's it, So yeah, again, kind of a long video, but I was doing that for a reason. I wanted you to understand that what you're experiencing is completely normal, bro. It's what we all go through. It's part of the process, and it's part of that rite of passage. It's why a lot of people can't possibly do this thing because it's too frightening to them. And again, it takes us a different type of person to do this. And so good luck with the fight coming up. I hope you do well, and hopefully something that I said in this video connected with you. And guys, I'll talk to you next time.